Hi guys, welcome back to Wardle Road. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do some footpaths for a canal. But before that, I just want to show you guys something that just arrived in the last couple of days. Just before the video starts, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Custom Layout Signs, who handcrafted this sign and got it out to me within, I think, a few days of me asking for it. So huge shout out to him. It's all embossed lettering and the logo as well. That's going to take pride of place at the front of my exhibition layout. So yeah, huge thanks to him. I'll leave his description for his Facebook page in the description. Please go check him out. It's really good value and brilliant quality. So yeah, let's get into the video. So to make the canal footpath like I did, I thought I'd run through everything I used over there. This is obviously, you can change it depending on what sort of time of year your layout is and where exactly in the world your layout is located. But for mine, I thought I'd go for a typical British muddy canal footpath. Glue-wise, I used just your bog standard PVA and some Pico Scene layering spray. Very useful and very important in the process of this. I've also got this like metal-y modelling pigment as well as concrete pigment. For the actual gravel, I've got this Woodland Scenics fine brown ballast. Of course, some foliage as well as a variety of plants and bushes. The last couple of details I used was this plastic ratio models fencing kit, security fencing. Really pleased with how these have turned out. They come in 160 centimeters per kit, so you can really make a lot of fencing out of this, which is really good. So I ended up buying 2 of them because I thought probably going to need that all over the layout. And then finally, dependent on what you're doing, you might need some figurines. And in this case, I've got 2 guys flying some planes. So now I've shown you what you need, let's get into actually making it. I thought I'd just point out, please ignore the water that I've got going down in here. It's not really anything in place. I'm just kind of testing out the different depths of colouring that I can do to make my canal as realistic as possible. So ignoring that, your first step is to make sure, obviously, this is a cork base here, which I painted brown. It's just to make sure that there's no underlying dirt or dust or anything that's going to get in the way. Once you're happy with that, the second step is to get a PVA glue base down. So you really want to cover every single part of your cork base with some PVA glue, so we'll get on with that. Right, now that's all the PVA down. I like to normally leave it for like 5-10 minutes till the PVA glue starts to go a little bit tacky before I put my ballast down. But before you let it get to that state, you really want to go around and wipe up all the areas where you don't want any ballast, because obviously you never get ballast up the side of a canal wall. So you want to get this as clear as possible, just to make sure the ballast only goes where you want it to. Also, though, just before we put the ballast down, I mentioned make sure you cover up your canal or river, whatever you're working on, because obviously I have got a mini vac to hand, but ballast tends to go everywhere when you're pouring it, no matter how accurately or precisely you try to pour it. So just thought I'd put a bit of paper over the top of this just to try and catch any of the excess ballast, and then I can hoover it up and use it again. Well, I've let that glue sit now for about 5-10 minutes, so it's becoming a little bit tacky now. So I'm going to use the Woodland Scenics fine brown ballast, B72, if anyone's looking to try and find that. And I'm going to gently sprinkle on my first layer of ballast. I tend to do quite a thick first coat, because once you see what I do with the Woodland Scenic spray or the Pico Scene spray, you might understand why I do it slightly thicker, because obviously all the PVA glue isn't going to catch this ballast to start with, because it's quite thick. Just another point to make a note of, where I've got my canal walls here, which are kits that I made up, between the canal wall and the polystyrene, every now and then I've got these slight gaps. If you find that you're having that same issue, don't worry about that, because when it comes to it, we'll be able to use it to hold the plant bases and the bush bases down. So yeah, not to worry about that. We're not going to worry too much if this top layer of ballast doesn't dry, because remember, once we've let it dry overnight, we're going to come back in the morning and hoover the rest of it up, which will kind of give us that patchy effect that I'm looking for, to then go over top and weather. But to keep some of the top layer in, I've mixed a 4:1 part water to PVA glue in one of these scenic sprayers. So I'm just going to lightly go over the top, only lightly, and spray this down. Right, now that's all done, we're going to come back tomorrow morning, and hopefully most of this glue should be dry. So see you in 2 seconds. Right, so it's the next morning, as you can probably tell by the slight difference in lighting, and the glue dries really well actually overnight. There's a couple of slightly damper patches still, but not going to worry about them, because when I scrape a lot of this off, it's going to give us a nice sort of uneven dirt texture, which is what we're looking for. So I'm just going to go along now with my finger and try and remove as much of the slightly loose ballast and anything that's left along here, and then hoover it up. So let's just get on with that. Right, now that's all done, for the next step I'm going to use this concrete modelling pigment, and I've also got, as well as the metal pigment, got this kind of like sand-like substance, so I'm also going to use that and start to create my dirt path. Right, now I've done the weathering, as you can see I've just hoovered up all the excess bits. I've put a lot of dirt around the bottom of the steps, as that's where dirt would tend to collect. And along here I put a bit of white pigment as well. What you're going to need next is your Pva Scene spray. And you just want to spray a light layer across the top. To really seal in all your weathering. And then while I let that dry, I'm going to get to work on fixing in my security fence for the railway. Right, so you join me back over at my workstation, and the next step is to prepare the bushes and flowers for the canal path. So I've got a selection of different Pva static grass clumps. So what you're going to want to do is take a couple of each. And then with a sharp blade, is split them as evenly in half as you can. So you're left with some nice, neat, sharp edges along the inside there. So you want to do that for all the grass tufts that you're going to use on the scene. So we'll do that, and then we'll head back over to the canal. Right, we're back over at the canal scene now, and hopefully you've got all of your chopped up pieces of grass. So what you're going to need for this is something with a really pointy end on it. So I've got this little, not really like scalpel type thing, and this is what I'm going to use to try and pod the bases of the plants into where I need them. So all you've got to do is get your tuft of grass. I'm using Gorilla Super Glue, and then you want to put just a dab on it, and then the flat side against your wall or canal edge. So for example, we'll put one here, and you want to use the prod to really dig in the base as much as you can, like that. And then for along the canal, I tend to use the flowers and the sort of dry grass tufts more than the grass tufts along the edge of the canal. So same again, you're going to get your little tuft, small drop of glue, flat edge against the canal wall, and push it in just like that into the gap using a scalpel. And as you can see, this should start to take shape. We'll do one more. So, get base of it. They go a lot further as well if you cut them in half, so it's always a good thing to do. And then you'll get it flat against the edge, like so. And you just want to poke in the roots, if you like, into those gaps. Like so. So I'm just going to carry on doing that, and you can join me back in a second, and hopefully we're pretty close to completion. Right, so I've added a few more pieces of grass and some more flowers. Obviously I could do with putting a few more down here, but what I've actually got going over this is a rather large girder bridge, so you won't see most of behind that anyway. But once you're happy with all the amount of various grasses and flowers that you put down, all that's really left for you to do is to put your figurines down. So I'm going to put them down and then cut to some shots of it finished. So here is my scene completed, and as you can see I finished it off with a couple of people perhaps stupidly flying their remote control planes over the canal. But if that's what they want to do, then that's what they want to do. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Sorry it's been a bit long-winded, but hopefully there's been some tips in here that can help you with your canals or any footpaths in general. My next video will probably be after Christmas with a sort of roundup of things I got for Christmas and maybe a layout update. There's a couple of other things I've been working on with programming up DC locos with soldering in DC chips, so might do a tutorial on that as well. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, feel free to comment, and if you're new to the channel, I think we're just gone over 80 subscribers now in a couple of weeks, which I think is brilliant, and over 2,000 channel views I think in total as well. But yeah, I hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.